All right, well, welcome everybody. We've got Danielle Davies. She is an Active Minds member, and she's going to be speaking about leaving anxiety out of uncertainty. So please give her a nice warm welcome.
Okay, trying to figure out where to hold this. So as Megan said, my name is Danielle. I'm a sophomore music ed and instrumental or flute performance major, and I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. I'm basically like just the average college student. I hate getting up for 8 a.m.s. I just am in a zillion clubs, and I really don't like eating with calf, and I wish there was more time in the day so I could just play video games, but you know, college. Oh geez. And another thing about me, which I guess is important to share, is that I've dealt with depression and anxiety relating to that depression. And I'm going to be speaking more on the anxiety side of things. In my opinion, there are basically like 3 ways that people really react to change in their life, which is, the first one is basically refusing to accept what's going on and pretending everything is as it was. And the second one is basically not coping. It's curling up into a ball and not exactly knowing how to deal with life. And the third one is being able to adapt to like the twists and turns of life. And obviously it's easy to like logically know what is the better choice, but obviously in the moment no one really knows like, what's the choice to make. So basically, not to be corny or anything, but the opening line to the theme song of like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like that's basically how my life was for most of high school and even kind of now. I would go for a few months where life would be normal and I'd get used to it, and then something would happen and just the world flips on me and I didn't know how to react. I was very shy and not really speaking about my problems, which didn't help, and I would freak out a lot. And I am one of those people who like to plan out my next like 3 months and live very according to that schedule. So change was not very high on my likes. And all of this really started like my freshman year of high school. Like I said, was really quiet. I kind of kept to myself. I only really had one best friend, and she was the complete opposite of me, which is why we were so close at the time. Where I was like quiet and just refused to tell people what was wrong with me, she was very loud and in your face and had no problem telling like people every little detail that bugged her, and she did that for me. She was basically my voice and my backbone. She would support me, and it was a really good situation for me. And then that first semester she dropped out of basically existence for like 2.5 months because she was really sick and getting diagnosed with a chronic kidney disease, but at the time I really didn't know what was going on. I basically thought she was dead because I had no idea because of lack of communication and just my mind jumping to the worst possible extreme. I would frequently ask like mutual friends that we had that were like really her friends that I only hung out with when I was with her, and they would just be like, oh, go check your email, or it's all been explained before, you probably heard it, so don't ask me again. And I would freak out because they weren't telling me, and I really had no access to figure it out, and I only figured out like after the whole ordeal, and when she was like, "Oh yeah, this is why I was gone. I'm fine now." But yeah, I during that time when she was gone, I basically kind of became severely antisocial. I went to class, didn't talk to anyone, and all of that. For some reason, I didn't think of hanging out with the friends that I would have hung out with my best friend, but I don't know. I just couldn't function at the time. And eventually when she came back, I had a few of those friends who were kind of trying to get closer to me, but it was, I don't know. I basically really didn't understand how to deal with that situation, and it didn't, yeah. But then, that was about all that happened that year. My sophomore year, I had a really drastic change for my family, and it was when my dad got diagnosed with cancer at the end of the first semester. And it was one of those things where you just kind of look at, like, the person, and then you just know deep down something is just not going to go right. And I ended up having to quit all of the things that were in my normal schedule, like my private music lessons, which I had been taking since I was 4, or my swim lessons, which I have also been taking since that age, that I would just automatically go to them, but now I couldn't because of financial reasons, and that really, really kind of broke me, because music was the one way I could express myself throughout my entire life, and, well, it still is, but at the time it kind of cut me off. Like, I would still go to, like, band and choir in high school, but it was basically me sitting there and not wanting to be there. And then frequently I would skip those classes to go to the nurse's office at my high school and just cry and vent to her, and that all led to her calling my mom and me ending up going to visit a psychologist because clearly I needed help and I didn't know how to deal with it. But and as awkward as that was at the time, I did learn like a few valuable things, like because I have so many issues like verbally speaking about like my problems, they taught me how to like maybe channel it through music again, or the one that I picked up was like writing. I ended up writing a lot of fiction, and I would just pour every little fear, anxiety, sadness, just everything into one page or so and just leave it. I don't know. That was very relieving for me. I didn't know that it was such a good idea beforehand, or I probably would have tried it, but yeah. And honestly, it's still a great way that I find when I'm stressing myself out or freaking out about little things. I just make it into a short story and make it have a decent ending, and somehow it's all better. But yeah. And then I was fine again for the summer months after that happened, and then my junior and senior year, I really had only one problem, that it was my fault, and I let myself slide into this problem, but I had issues being in relationships, as in I really had to be in one or else I was not happy, and I was again not coping with life, and it would just be a continuous cycle that my friends could eventually predict. I would get into a relationship with a guy I wouldn't really care about. I allowed myself to be in this misfortunate relationship, and by the time I would grow attached to them, they would dump me, and then I would be sad again to the point where I just barely function, and then like freak out anytime like something happened because I'm not getting that call or text message like every day at this certain time, or I'm not seeing such so-and-so person during this passing period, or stuff like that. And that would go on for a couple months, and then I would eventually reach up to a point where I would be determined that I can be single, it's okay, and then the cycle would go over again. And that really strained my mom, because she didn't like that, and she didn't like when I was freaking out and how many relationships I was having, and like it was just a bad time. And with her, I was very like angry and fighting with her at the best of times with the relationship, and basically not speaking to her at all at the worst. I'm not exactly sure what she thought, like specifically about what was going on with me, or why she didn't try harder to help calm me down and get me like less anxious. But yeah, and I mean, yeah, that cycle of like letting myself like basically have panic attacks over not being in a relationship continued until like about a month or so after I graduated high school, and at which point I decided I'm going to go to a college 6 hours away from my house. I don't need to, I can move on and I can deal with this later, basically. And I made a lot of friends over that like couple months that kind of helped me like focus on something else, which was nice, and I ended up calming down a lot from that. But yeah, and then last year, being my first year at Carthage, I was not really anxious so much. Like, I mean, it was a big move from me living in one town in Iowa for the entirety of my life to moving up here, which is 6 hours away, and spending like 80% of the year here. I was kind of panicking, but at the same time, it kind of was drowned by excitement and the fact that I had new friends and that I had like a beautiful environment to be around. Like the lake was nice because I would go like calm myself down at the lake if I get too panicky, because it's pretty and I could just stare out and not think for a while. And my friends would help me a lot too, because like if I did start panicking, I would go to them, like kind of rant about it, and they would kind of give me like the proverbial like wake up slap to be like, hey, stop that. It's not that big of a deal. And that's kind of helped me a lot, actually, because I like to over-exaggerate things. And yeah, other than that, I really didn't freak out much, other than, around finals time when every college student is freaking out, or at that like 4 o'clock in the morning point when you're trying to get something done for a class, but you just really want to sleep, but you just don't know, and so you freak out. But yeah, other than that, I was fine. And yeah, right now I am pretty much fine. I am dealing with a lot of things like my financial situation or my family, like my parents potentially splitting up, I don't know. They keep on flipping back and forth on that, which isn't helping the anxiety at all, or the fact that my brother's health is like, right now, and still don't know about that, and also relating to my parents splitting up, I don't know if I'm going to live in the same area or state, even like after the summer. So that's it. Yeah, that's basically what I'm dealing with now, and I kind of found that like just talking about it and writing it down and just speaking has helped me a lot to deal with it. And like I know how to cope now, and it's not like I'm going to be like, okay, I can deal with all the craziness of like life all at once, because I'm not going to deal with that. But it's better now than it was back then, and I know I can deal with more, and that I'm stronger because of all of the anxieties and stuff that I've dealt with.
Great.
Sorry.
No, that's good. Does anybody have any questions for Danielle that you'd like to throw at her while she's on the spot?
Nice.
I have a question. I guess if somebody, because I think a lot of us are dealing with anxiety, and like you said, you feel like you're kind of the typical college student, and the college students, we all have, we have finals, we have those general anxieties, but there are a lot more of us that are dealing with similar things like you are. I guess if somebody came to you and was looking for some help, like what would you tell them? Like if one of us here is dealing with the same thing you are, your best advice, I guess, for somebody going through the same situation.
I guess my best advice would be that we'll just continue to speak about it. Like, even if it's like a little thing, like if it starts to bug you at all, just tell someone. And then also, life always gets better. If it's not okay, it's not the end of life. So I mean, life will move on, so it's okay.
Anybody else have anything they want to ask Danielle? All right, well, I'm sure that she'd be willing to stick around afterward and talk to you. So let's give her a round of applause.